Hi guys, it's Pete from MyJewelryBunch.com. Today what I want to do with you is work with you to show you how to make this basic shape for a school ring. This is part one, and we're going to start with nothing but objects and work our way into this. And once we get to this point, we will finish part one, and in part two we will be adding the next phases, which will be the names, any designs that we want on the side, maybe a school logo or however we want to do it. And then in part three, we'll be covering the 3D printing of this and readying this model for casting. And please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. All the subscribers help grow my channel, and I appreciate each and every one of you. Okay guys, so let's get started on this. We are going to start by having a clean slate, so get rid of any object that you currently have on your screen. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to hit Shift A, and we're going to add in a mesh, and we're going to go to UV sphere. And I'm going to give the UV sphere 200 segments and 200 rings. And that's just going to give us a high definition object on our screen. I'm also going to size this down to 21 millimeters by 21 millimeters by 21 millimeters. That gives us a good place to start for our school ring. The next thing I want to do is I want to cut this in a way so that it actually has the shape of a school ring. And to do this, I'm going to add in a new object. I'm going to zoom out here a little bit. Go to Shift A, and we're going to go into Mesh and add in a cube. I can find it here, right there. And I'm going to size this down to 20 millimeters by 20 millimeters by 20 millimeters. And I am going to add in a modifier to our cube. We are going to add in a mirror modifier. So under the little wrench here, we're going to add a modifier, and we're going to come down to mirror. We're going to mirror along the x-axis. Now what that's going to do is allow me to make two objects based on the first object. So I'm going to go into edit mode by pressing the tab key. I'm going to move this over just like so and get it about there. I'm going to rotate this along the y-axis, hit R, Y, and I'm going to rotate this down about like so to give me a shape. And hopefully you can see what I'm doing. I'm trying to give myself a shape to the class ring. So I want something about like that. I'm going to go back into object mode. I'm going to apply this modifier, and then I am going to select the cubes. I'm going to hold the Shift key down and select the sphere, and I am going to Boolean difference. So I'll come down to Edit tab here. I'm going to go to the Auto Boolean difference. And now you can see we have a basic shape to our school ring. While it's not perfect, it's about what I'm looking for. And again, this is just to give us a basic starting point. The next thing I want to do is cut a hole in this, but to do this, we're gonna add in, using the Shift A, we're gonna add in another mesh. We're gonna add in a cylinder. And on my cylinder, I'm gonna give that 150 vertices. Under Item, I'm gonna come down here and I'm gonna make this approximately 18 millimeters by 18 millimeters by 18 millimeters. I'm going to rotate this along the y-axis, RY90. I'm going to go into my side view, and now what I want to do is I want to make the school ring or the sphere. Actually, while we're here, why don't we change the name of that? Just going to double click on that right there and call this school ring. If I could spell, we'd be good. Okay, so with the school ring selected, I'm going to hit S and Z and rotate this up and down along the Z axis just a little bit. I'm going to do this by eye. S, Z, and then just make it a little bit taller. I'm going to grab my cylinder, and I'm going to move that down to about here so that I have a good bottom frame. Maybe just make that a little taller, bring that up a little bit. And that gives us a good shape. Not quite a perfect circular shape, but a roundish oblong shape, almost an egg shape. With the cylinder selected, I'm going to hold that down. going to hold the Shift key and then select our school ring. And then again, we're going to go to the Edit tab and select Difference under Boolean. And here you can see we have the basics of our school ring. It's kind of a cutout. Now, this is not an advanced part of this, but what I want to do is I want to duplicate our school ring. So hit Shift D with the school ring selected, then press Enter. And now I'm going to select school ring 001, and I'm going to hit S. And I'm going to size this down a little bit. I'm going to shrink it about there. I'm going to look at it from the side view. Let's make that a little bit smaller to maybe about there. And what I'm actually going to do is use that as a cutout for the inside of our school ring. And that looks okay from that side. So with the second school ring selected, the .001, I'm going to hold the Shift key down and select our original school ring. Come over to the Edit tab and use the Boolean difference. What that does is it kind of hollows out the inside of our ring. The reason we do that is basically to allow us to cut out the solidity of the ring so that we're not using as much gold or silver or whatever we're going to make this ring out of. With that done, I'm going to save this. I'm going to go to File, Save As, and I'm going to call this School Ring 2. And I'm going to save that. So you've got your saved file. Now, if you remember, we want to make a school ring that has, I'm just going to pull up a picture here. We want to make a school ring, and you can see it's got indents on the side so that we can add in some, maybe our school logo or the dates that we went to school there, or maybe our name, however we want to do that. So I'm just going to try to mimic this little shield, this indented shield on the side. To do that, I actually have to make a new object, and I'm going to make it out of a cube. So I'm going to hit Shift A, and we're going to go to Add Mesh, and we are going to select Cube. And I'm going to size this down, go to the Edit tab, and we'll size this down to 10 millimeters by 10 millimeters by 10 millimeters, just to give us a starting point. I'm going to size this along the Z-axis. We'll make this 3 millimeters, just to give us some kind of an object shape to work with. I'm going to take my school ring, I'm going to select that, and I'm going to hit the little eyeball next to it so that we can hide that. And now we're only working with this. Let's rename this cube, and we're going to call it Shield Cutout, just so we have a name to use. With that selected, I'm going to go into Edit mode, and I'm going to make a loop cut through the side along the Y-axis. Press Control R, and you can see we have our loop cut. And if I go back into Edit mode and select all, you can see we have a nice loop cut right through along the Y-axis. Now that that's done, I want to give this shield somewhat of a shape. I'm going to select my face tool. I'm going to size the bottom part of our shield down. So I'm going to select these two faces, and I'm going to size this along the X-axis. So hit S, X, and then you can move your mouse towards the object to make it just a little bit smaller. I'm going to come over here and select my vertex tool, and I'm going to select the center vertex on this side right here. I'm going to rotate this around, and we're going to select this one on the opposite side. So hit Shift and then select that with your mouse. And I'm going to move that over using my cursor just like so. So I've given this somewhat of a shield shape. And now I am going to hit Control B, and I'm going to give this somewhat of a curved bevel cut on both the top and the bottom. With that done, I'm going to select this side here, and I'm going to hold the Shift key down and select this vertex here, and I'm going to do the same thing, Control B, and I'm just going to give that just a little bit of a round edge because we don't really want a sharp edge on this. You might, and that's up to you. going to make this a little thinner, SZ, and we're going to shrink that down just a little bit. There we go. Okay, so that's about how I want this to look. I'm going to rotate this along the x-axis so that it's upright, RX 270, and press Enter. I'm going to press Control A with my item selected and then apply rotation and scale. Control A, rotation and scale. And now I'm going to bring back our school ring. And just to show you what this looks like, if I move this over here, I've got an object that I can use as a cutout to give me that shield effect. But before I do that, I have to make sure that there are enough vertices to bend this object around the ring. So let's go back into edit mode. We're going to select A for all. I'm going to press Control T, and we're going to subdivide that with triangular cuts. I'm going to right click on this and come down to subdivide. And then under subdivide, the number of cuts, I am actually going to make that 4. So you can see we've got a lot more faces and vertices on this object, which will be better for bending it. Okay, now what I'd like to do is I'd like to take the corners of this cutout and bend it along the side circumference of the ring. To do that, I'm going to hit 7 on my numeric keypad. I'm going to select my cutout. I'm going to move it over just a little bit like so. And let's see here. Let's move this up. 7. Let's see, I want it to be about there. I'm going to actually size this a little bit. I'm going to make that just a little bit bigger. I think that looks good. I'm going to go back to 7. Okay, so now that I'm looking down, I want to bend the corners down. I want to bend this side down to the circumference of the ring on either side. How I do that is by basically doing this. I'm going to hit Shift S, and I'm going to select Cursor to Selected. And you can see it puts this little red and white cursor in the middle of our object as we're looking straight down at it. With that done, I'm going to press the Tab key to go into edit mode. Leaving my center cursor there, I'm going to move my mouse to the side, right about here. I'm going to press Shift W, and I'm going to bring that down just like so. I'm going to go over to the other side and move my cursor there and press Shift W again, and I will move that side down just about like so. And as a reference line, I'm using this grid line right here, kind of just eyeballing it. I'm going to press the Tab key and go back into object mode, and it looks pretty good, not perfect. So I'm going to go back into edit mode, looking straight down with my cursor right here. I'm going to press Shift W one more time. I'm going to bring that down just a little bit more on either side. Shift W, and just bring that down right about there. The next thing I want to do is give this a circle to conform to, and we need to add in a curved surface or a curved object that we can conform our cutout along the perimeter of the ring. There's a couple different ways to do this, but in this respect we're going to do it the simplest way, which is Shift A, select Curve, and then Circle. I am actually going to size this down to 30 millimeters. And I'm going to rotate this along the x-axis, RX90. Oops. Select our circle, RX90, RZ90. Okay, so now I've got it basically in the center of our cutout object. We want to move that back, so I'm going to hit Shift S, cursor to World Origin, so it puts our little red and white cursor back there. And with this object selected, I'm going to hit Shift S, and I'm going to select Selection to Cursor, and it moves our circle around the perimeter of the ring. While we still have our circle selected, I'm going to hit S and size that down so it comes to about the outer perimeter of the side of the ring. and then I will hit SZ, and we will make that a little taller so that it goes around the upper perimeter of our ring. Now it's time to apply a modifier to our shield, our cutout shield, and we're going to make this conform to that circle. So with the shield cutout selected, I'm going to go down to adding a modifier, select add modifier, and then curve. We're going to select the circle that we added, the Bezier circle, and then I'm going to hit the negative let's move that over here. Let's rotate that along the Y or the Z axis. Rotate that along the X axis. Now you can see it's a little offset. I'm going to move my cursor. We'll use the blue cursor and we'll kind of put that onto the surface of the ring. And I want that just a little bit more along the x-axis, Rx, and we're going to rotate that just a little bit more to see how far it protrudes into our object. I'm just going to take a look and see if the meshes blend in. Rx, and again I'm just going to play until I get it to cut into our ring object. Now I want this to be a little higher on the ring, so I'm going to move that over like so. Let's go back in the model mode, and we're not quite there yet. So as I zoom in, you can see I'm just trying to get it below the surface just ever so slightly, just like so. And that's about what I'm hoping for. It's not protruding through the inside of the ring, but it's going to give us a cutout on the ring itself. With that done, I'm actually going to apply this. So I'm going to hit apply the modifier, and now we don't need our curve anymore, so I can select our curve and we can get rid of it. What I want to do now is I want to take this and I'm going to select my cutout. Oops, we're going to right click on it. We're going to say set origin to 3D cursor. And now it puts the origin of our object in the middle of our world. So now I can take this and I can apply a duplicate of this cutout on the opposite side in the exact same location by applying a mirror modifier along the Z-axis. So I'll select the cutout. I'll come down to my mirror modifier. I will select Z and then unselect X. And now you can see I have two cutouts on the ring. And this is what I'll use to make those shield indentations on our school ring. So let's apply that modifier. With our shield cutout selected, hold the Shift key down, select your school ring, come to the Edit tab right here, and then Boolean difference. And what that does is it gives us a shield cutout on either side of our school ring. Pretty slick so far. I know that's a little complicated, but it does help us with designing our school ring to look similar to this. The next thing I want to do is I want to add in a cutout for a 12mm stone on the top. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the Tools tab. I'm going to select my diamonds. I'm going to come down to Round, and I'm going to hit Append. And that gives us a gemstone in the center. With that selected, I'm actually going to size that up a little bit. Let's go over to our Item tab. And we're going to size that up until it's approximately, let's say 10mm. I'm going to bring that up to the surface, and that's about where I want it, right about there. Just to give myself a little buffer, I'm going to size this down to 9mm. And that looks good right there. I'm going to bring that up just like so. Okay, so now that I have that done, and that's just giving me a reference for the stone, I'm going to select my school ring. And I also want to create an indentation in the ring that's going to allow me to add in the lettering for our school ring. So with the school ring selected, press the Tab key and go into edit mode. I'm going to select all and then double click the A key to unselect all. And now I'm going to select a group of rings around the perimeter of the surface of this school ring by holding, well, first selecting the face tab right here. Now I'm going to come down to about this location. I'm going to hold the Shift key and the Alt key down together, and I'm going to select one loop. I'm going to keep those two keys, the Shift and Alt keys, pressed in, and just move my mouse to select a group of loops. That's 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Let's go to 11. And that gives me a good perimeter around the surface of my ring. And now what I want to do is hit the E key for extrude. So you're going to tap the E key and release it. And then hit S to size. And then I'm going to size this in ever so slightly, about like so. And of course, it gives us a flat surface. I want to actually have this come down at more of an angle like so. And then I'm going to hit SZ, and I'm just going to make this a little narrower on the inner diameter, just about like so. When I hit the Tab key to go into object mode, you can see now I have a circular ring around the perimeter of this that will allow me to use or have a place where I can type in, let's say, my school ring or my school name. And that school name could be created using the same thing we did when we did the name jewelry, and we'll go through that too in this. The next thing I want to do before we end part one is I want to make a cutout for our diamond, and the cutout for our diamond is going to be pretty easy. I basically want to create a bezel setting just like this stone is set within a bezel. I don't necessarily need to use the diamond, but I'm going to leave that there. I'm going to hit Shift A, and we're going to add in a new mesh, and I'm going to come down to cylinder. I am going to, we still have 150 cuts, that's pretty good. I'm going to select 9 millimeters by 9 millimeters by 9 millimeters. I'm going to move this cylinder up so that it protrudes through the upper surface of the ring and through the lower surface of the inner part of the ring, just like so. With my mouse, or with my cylinder selected, I'm going to go into edit mode by pressing the Tab key, select faces, and I'm going to select this bottom face right here, and I'm going to size that down to about like so, giving me a cone shape. And now what I want to do is press the Tab key. I want to move my diamond to about here, just like so. And now I want to size this so that it sizes up to the perimeter of that diamond, just about like so. And I'm going to go a little bit larger just to cover myself. And that's the cutout that I'm going to use for the stone bezel setting. Once you've selected the cylinder, press and hold the Shift key and select your school ring. Again, we're going to go to the Edit tab, select Boolean Difference, and that gives us a hole through the upper surface of the ring, where now I can basically bezel set my stone when I set it in here. And I have a frame to hold the gemstone in place. Let me just lower this back down. Just for visuals, I'm going to do that. And that's the end of part one of creating our school ring. In part two, guys, what we're going to do is we're going to add in the school name and then add in some decorations to the side. And in part three, we will 3D print this and examine the results of our 3D printing. So thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you found it very informative. Stay tuned because part 2 is coming out in a few days, and then we will move on to part 3 from there. Take care, guys, and if you're not a subscriber, please hit that subscribe button and become one. Have a good day.